Hi,
Perfect.
everyone, and welcome to this edition. We're into season 2 now, which I'm very excited about. We are talking about women's safety in healthcare, and I have some amazing fangirling all over the place guests today. I can't believe the work that they're doing, and I am so glad as a pelvic PT that they are doing this work because it is why, for all the pelvic PTs out there listening, this is why we do what we do. We are so motivated to help people. And so, for those of you who are listening, and maybe you're not a pelvic PT, and you're wondering, well, what is this? What is this about women's healthcare safety? Women's safety in healthcare.
Mhm.
Well, if you haven't been introduced to the term medical gaslighting yet, this is the perfect time to do that because studies show that female patients, people of color, they are more likely to have their symptoms dismissed. Um, and not just dismissed, but shamed, made fun of, completely marginalized, made to feel like, which is what gaslighting is, made to feel like you're crazy. And since I think that was the word of the year last year, was gaslighting.
Really?
Yes, it was.
Makes sense.
It does. So I don't want to, insult everyone's intelligence by defining gaslighting, but I think it was 2022's word of the year.
Mm.
But, there are stats like this. Women face longer waits to be diagnosed with not just things all related to pelvic health, but it's that plus cancer, heart disease. They are treated less aggressively for traumatic brain injury. They're less likely to be offered pain medications. The list just goes on and on. And this being my 27th year of practice, um, I just want to go, because I've seen and heard so many of the stories. And so this is why we have our wonderful guests on today. We have Bonnie Gross, who is the executive producer and screenwriter, and Nancy Boyd, who is the director and producer of the new film, Lady Parts. I want to launch into their big bios, but because it's so fantastic. But I also want to hear from them because I've already been talking too much. So can I just kick it off with this basic question? And that's, tell me about your stories and how you met and the catalyst for all this.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm the screenwriter. So Lady Parts is based off my own personal journey. Um, I had what's called vulvar vestibulitis and then also vaginismus. So just a lot of fun going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a long year journey where basically I exactly like you said, a lot of medical gaslighting where I would go to doctors, they would tell me, oh, it's just in your head. I even had people suggest I try drinking for painful sex or, um, just things that would amaze people. And after a couple years, I finally found a specialist that was properly diagnosing me and treating me. I ended up getting a surgery, the vulvar vestibulectomy surgery. And then I went to pelvic floor therapy. I did dilators, all the fun there, and went back home to my parents' house during the time because it was very expensive and you need somebody to take care of you for that whole process.
Mhm.
So that's what the film really centers around is that period of time of doing the surgery, recovering from the surgery, and your interpersonal relationships with people you're either dating, sleeping with, your parents, anybody that could be involved in that process because it's such a topic that we don't feel comfortable talking about, but it affects so many women and so many people. And so that was where this film kind of came to light was just after it was all said and done, trying to research stuff myself and coming up short. And
Mhm.
so it's the film I wish I could have watched when I was going through it.
Fantastic. How long did you say again, for our listeners, how long did it take to
Yep.
really get a proper diagnosis?
I would say about 3 years of actively looking. It had always hurt to put in like tampons. I always found
Mhm.
riding a bike to be uncomfortable, but again, we don't talk about it. So I just assumed these were kind of normal things. And it wasn't until, I hit college and was, sexually active and stuff like that, that I really was like, oh, this is something that I need to start going to
Mhm.
doctors about.
Yeah, yeah. 3 years. 3
Yes.
years. 3 years. There are so many diagnoses out there related to pelvic health where that seems to be a common answer is 2.5 years. It's not 12 months, it's not 6 weeks, it's years. And so
Yes.
if you're out there and this is happening to you, this, you know, this talk that we're having today is all about you getting the help that you need because you deserve it. It's what women's healthcare and anyone who identifies as female, it's what your healthcare should look like. And so I hope that talking about this so openly and transparently today really helps you all, who are listening. So thank you so much. This sounds like a really good time to talk a little bit more about you, Bonnie, and Nancy. I will launch into let you answer that question just a minute, but
Yeah.
just to kind of like celebrate Bonnie for just a second. She is an award-winning comedy writer and producer. She loves to tell stories around female healthcare and sexuality. Yes, we need so many more people doing that. You're a New York transplant, is that right?
Yes.
And you went to University of Alabama. You completed the UCLA Professional Program for TV Comedy Writing in 2018. Have a bachelor's also in media production. You've been named one of ISA's top 25 screenwriters to watch in 2020. She's worked on post-production stuff ranging from Encore Hollywood and Light Iron. She has written, produced, and edited comedy videos for It's a Southern Thing, and I watched some of those because I am from the South. I'm from North Carolina, so right up on the edge. And those were funny. It's I think the one about what Mama says and the
Oh my
sleep.
God, yeah. The game show? The game.
Yes. I was like, I'm still laughing. It was great.
Thank you.
And then some of your videos on TikTok. And she hopes to translate her vast production experiences into, lady parts, obviously, now that you're in its final throes of doing that, in hopes to raise awareness. So thank you for being you, Bonnie. And
Thank
thanks for
you.
being here. Yeah. So Nancy, tell me about your story. Oh, and I also need to. How did you guys meet each other? I've got to figure that out.
Yeah, of course. Well, my name is Nancy, and I'm the director of Lady Parts, and I am so blessed to be the director of Lady Parts. I have vaginismus, and I was lucky, luckier than Bonnie in some ways because I didn't really have any medical gaslighting happening to me. A lot of my hurdles were personal and cultural, and there was a lot of religious trauma and shame that comes around just having a body as a woman. And I felt really uncomfortable talking to doctors about this pain that I had. And when I would talk to friends or family, people don't really know that vaginismus is a thing because we're taught to not really talk about that kind of stuff. And so I thought that it must all be in my head. I kind of did my own gaslighting because of the culture around us. And it wasn't until I went to my first gynecology appointment when I was 26 because I was so scared to go to the gynecologist
Yeah.
because of the pain that was happening. And it wasn't until I went to the gynecologist and I was so nervous. And I was saying, nothing can go inside of me, essentially. I'm not sure how you're going to do this pap smear. I get a lot of pain like during sex. I get a lot of pain pretty much any time that anything tries to go in there. And they asked me if I had pain putting in tampons, and I said yes. And then she said, "It sounds like you have vaginismus." And that was the first time that I heard that term. And luckily, I was really happy that I was I'm in LA, and there's a place that was very helpful and wonderful to me. So I had a good experience in the medical community, but I think that the important thing that we want to do with this film is make it easier for us all to talk about these problems that we're having, and even not problems, but just talking about having a vagina, because there's not really an owner's manual,
Yes.
and we need to all be comfortable talking about it because it's going to make life so much easier for us. And so Bonnie and I actually met through a mutual friend and Bonnie's coworker. Her name is Megan Griesbeck. She's another one of our producers on Lady Parts. Bonnie works with Megan, and Megan heard that she was writing this story, and she knew about my vaginismus, and she knew about the kind of stories that I like to tell as a director. And she said, "You really have to meet Nancy." And we did, and it was just kismet.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
So, both of you have shared your stories and how you felt. And for those of you who, are wondering, could I have those things too? It's worth a like playback, 2 or 3 minutes to listen to some of those symptoms. Are there any other
Mhm.
symptoms that you would add? And then before we move away from that, I definitely want to celebrate Nancy for a little bit too and read
Oh,
a little
thank
bit
you.
more about her. But are there any extra symptoms that you'd say, oh, that's a red flag? If I could just send that out there into the world, so young women would know.
The feeling of the door closing on your vagina. I
Mm-hmm.
think that when I describe that to partners or anything, didn't really understand it because things are supposed to go into a vagina, but the feeling that like that door is closed completely, I think is definitely a symptom that I didn't know was real until until
Yeah.
I got the diagnosis.
Yeah, that's a really descriptive way to put it, because oftentimes, that's what I do for a living, and so it can come
Mhm.
across when you're describing is too kind of antiseptic, too medical, too jargony. So I like
Mhm.
that description.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I always say, like, you know your body better than anyone else. And if something doesn't feel right, then it probably 100% isn't right. And
Mhm.
always go find better help then, because you deserve somebody who believes you when you say something hurts or
yeah,
doesn't feel right.
yeah. And you know, the very um, kind of premise of why we're here talking about this today is so for Nancy, she didn't, fortunately, thank goodness, like it's an exception, I think, when you haven't
Mhm.
been medically gaslighted. But for those of you listening that have, to know that it's okay to call it out. It's not that you need to be like combative at the office or whatever. You just can kind of quiet quit your physician,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and move on, to another one. And that way you don't have the stress and the trauma of confronting
Mhm.
someone who the reason they medically gaslight you is because their ego is so giant it can't fit in the room with you. Oftentimes
Mhm.
they don't understand what those symptoms are, so it's easier to dismiss it than take it seriously because maybe they just don't have the background or the training or the education to understand it. So when you feel dismissed, you probably have been, and it's okay to quiet quit it. Um,
Mhm.
so Nancy, let me cheerlead you for just a second because I have to do
Thank
that.
you.
Um, I loved your small town story about being from the small town in Michigan. I am from a small town in North Carolina, and when I read that about you, that you can't go to the grocery store without running into your elementary school teacher or your friend's
Mhm.
mom every time, that I just kind of I had to cackle out loud about
Yeah.
that because it's so true about where I grew up. And that also explains the whole cultural piece of that, because if you're in a small town, it's hard enough to talk about issues with someone you
Mm.
trust. But if you're struggling with that, it can just kind of be terrifying, mortifying to do that in a place where everybody knows everybody.
Mhm.
So you started making short films in fifth grade, but an undergrad at Madonna University, you started your own freelance photography and video business, and then made the giant leap to LA to pursue an MFA in film and television production at University of Southern California. And before the age of 30, yes, you will have directed 3 indie feature films, which is amazing.
Thank
Um,
you.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for being here. I love that your mission with this film is to, as is in your bio here, to make people feel less awkward about getting help and talking
Mhm.
about their bodies. So there must have been a point where you said, I have to do something about this, like a tipping point, like I call it a critical mass point where you reach a point where you're
Mhm.
like, yeah, I can't do it this way anymore. Or I can't just get better and move on with my life. I have to help somebody else with this. Can you describe when that happened?
I think for me, honestly, it was talking to Bonnie, because I I mean, I knew that this was happening with me, and I knew that it was something in my life, but I never knew anyone personally who had this same issue. And there are a lot of similarities between Bonnie and I. Bonnie has some differences as well, but there are a lot of similarities. And finally, having someone that I could talk to about that made me realize, oh, like I'm truly not the only one. Like you see statistics online and those are just numbers. They don't seem like real people. And then you see a real person in front of you and talk to them and you realize, oh, I'm not just a number. I'm a person. I have this problem, and there are other people out there that also have this problem. And once I started talking to Bonnie about it, it made me feel so seen, and I wanted to give that feeling to other people by making this film.
Oh, I saw your expression, um, Bonnie, when Nancy said that. I'm sure you've got some things to say about it.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm like holding back tears.
Oh no.
That is
We're a very
beautiful.
cry positive set.
Oh
We
yeah,
cry a
bring it
lot.
on.
I was like, bring on the I know, I think that was the other thing too. But no, it brings me so much joy because like, I remember feeling that way. Like I got the surgery done, like I'm good, I'm like I'm healthy, I'm on a track to like, things being better. And that feeling still a feeling like, yeah, you're just a number. You don't know anyone, you can't talk to anyone. And I like joined these Facebook groups where, women were talking about like either vulvodynia, vaginismus, or both, or pelvic floor. And it was the first time you start to realize you're like, oh, okay, it's not just me. Yeah. Like you start to realize it's people all over the world. And when you like have that connection with somebody else, like it's really indescribable because like you both feel like you went through this really strange, weird experience, and then you just get to like bond over it and laugh about it, which like was a big thing too. Like this is, very much a dramedy. Like there's drama, but there's also a lot of comedy in it, and
Yeah.
because that's more real life.
Mhm.
And so I think for us getting to like talk about it and getting to laugh about it is like the most cathartic thing, and getting to meet other people while we were even doing this process. We've had people reach out on Instagram. We've had people, even on our own set, kind of talk about their own issues. And so I think this whole process just kind of every day we were just like constantly reminded of like why we're doing this and why it's so important.
Mhm.
And it's really cool to like see that unfold in front of you.
Yeah, I think Bonnie made a really good point too, because once you start talking about one thing, like if we start talking about our vaginismus, someone doesn't have to have vaginismus to relate or be a part of the conversation. They start thinking about their own body and their own issues that they have or their own questions that they have. Nothing, has to be wrong, but sometimes people have questions, and we have a lack of sex education in a lot of areas.
Yes.
And just once you open the door to talking about things that you're told you shouldn't talk about in a polite company, it opens the door to talking about so much more. And communication and education and knowledge is power and agency, and that's something that
Yes.
people need.
Yeah. Yeah. It allows us to shift the paradigm because you mentioned what the paradigm was. Oh, we don't talk about that stuff, right? In polite
Mhm.
conversation. And so we get to go, well, actually, no, we can do that,
Mhm.
And we get to shift the entire kind of blow up the paradigm, if you will, and go, absolutely not. That's the actual problem is not being able to talk about it. Never mind that every historical text even stuff into the 1900s. I think Hippocrates said that, you know, the womb is responsible for hysteria because the womb runs through the entire body, and crazy shit
Mhm.
like that. By the way, we can swear. Um, on
Great.
this podcast. Because things like this, sometimes you just have to swear. There's a little research that
Mhm.
you can look that up too, of swearing actually helping us relieve stress a little bit better. So feel
Yeah.
I
free to do
love
that.
that.
But it does allow us to kind of blow up that paradigm and say, absolutely not. That was, you know, the whole being able to hold one gender back and say, no, not only can you not talk about this, we're also not going to put decent pockets in your dresses and
Mhm.
your pants either. You know, because all of that is just another form of, you know, holding that other gender back.
Mhm.
So when I think about shifting the paradigm, I also think about you guys as filmmakers and artists and creatives. As women, how hard was this process to make this film? And I'm sure there was paradigms you had to blow up there too.
Yeah, I definitely think it was challenging to get some people on board because the topic itself is not something that anyone really talks about. And, you
Mhm.
know, when I had first initially started pitching this out, the original idea was I'm going to pitch it to somebody else to make. And I got a lot of feedback that was like, this is cool, but I don't think we can do this. Or I think it's too much. Or I think it,
Mhm.
it would be a little too out of the box. Or I don't think there's an audience for it. I think it's a little too niche.
Oh my
I got
gosh.
that a lot too.
Oh my gosh. I
Um,
just have to sit with that for a
Ridiculous.
moment. Yeah,
yeah.
that's incredibly ridiculous.
um,
Wow.
so it got to the point where I said, okay, well, if I want to get this made, I'm going to have to do it myself. It's not going to be, no one's going to magically come along and do it. And then,
Mhm.
so I took my entire life savings from 16 and poured that into this film. And then we did a couple of crowdfunding. We got some donations, which we're so thankful for. But like I said, because of the topic of the film, it's really hard to sometimes find people who were genuinely interested in helping this topic.
Mhm.
And but then the other side of that is we did find amazing people who were really, really excited to help this topic.
Yeah.
Um,
That's great.
but
So
I
you
think that we like found the right people too, like
yes,
because it is so much, as people are saying.
yes,
We found like the perfect group of people who wanted to be a part of it because it was so like, I guess, niche in a way, as they say. Like the people who are bold and courageous and really want to have these conversations, and it was great.
so
yeah.
what was the time frame of, because I know you experienced probably, you know, pushback and what you're describing, some pushback, some, yeah, that's nice, but we don't want that. What was the time that, you know, the genesis of the idea to actually feeling like, okay, this is really going to happen. We're going to be able to do this.
Mm.
I would say I started writing it in 2017 when I was at UCLA. It started as a television pilot, actually, like a sitcom, and then nothing really came of it. And then it kind of switched to a feature film, and so that was a couple year process of writing that, and then it went right into we started doing like producing on it in 2020, I would say. 2020. I feel like the years are all melding together from
They
those
do. We
3
lost a
years.
couple of
But
years there.
yeah, I'd say once we hit 2021 is like when it really was like, okay, we're doing this. We started, like let's attach some people to the project. Let's find a director, let's find a DP, let's start talking about, you know, how we're actually going to do this. And when we started filming last year for the month of July in Los Angeles, and I think by the first day we got on set, I was like, oh my god,
It's
it is
real.
real
Yes.
now. Like it's not just this crazy thing we keep talking about and preparing for.
Yeah.
Like we are here on set, dilators, lights, camera, action. And
And I saw
yeah,
your nod and use of Intimate Rose,
yes,
Dr.
Yeah.
Amanda Olson. So for those of you who don't know, you should look up Intimate Rose. It is a woman-owned physical therapist, pelvic physical therapist owned and founded company, and it's wonderful. So I was really excited to see that. They have really great stuff, and I use it all the time in PT.
Yeah, they were wonderful partners for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
I'm take the message in that number of years, because 2017, I think once you reach a certain age, 2017 seems like yesterday, but it's not. That's a lot of time. That's
Mhm.
not a lot. That's a lot of time that has passed, and particularly when you're kind of up against two things, as as filmmakers who as women, plus as women going through a system that was really created by men for men. It's really
Mhm.
hard to get to this point. So I just want to celebrate that you got to
Thank
this
you.
point, where now you're getting ready to push the film out into the world, to give birth to, so to speak, into all the different places that it needs to be, because as many people as possible need to see this. There have been so many stories, and I'll just share one. This was a long time ago, over 15 years ago, when I was making the transition from just being an orthopedic PT to realizing, that hip is connected to a pelvic floor. And if a
Mhm.
person has a hip pain, then I need to be looking at the pelvic floor. Plus, I also had 1, 2, and then 3 kids. So if that didn't show me, then giving birth was about to just blow it all open for me. And so about that, because my oldest will be 18 soon. So it was a little bit over 15 years ago. But one of the common stories I heard over and over again. So for those of you who are listening, maybe you don't have pelvic pain, but I guarantee you somebody in your friend group does. And it
Mhm.
was a husband of a patient who I was seeing. And the biggest struggle was within her own support system of
Mm.
her husband not believing her and saying, and these are caring people. It's not like an
Mhm.
uncaring, abusive relationship. This
Yeah.
is a happy marriage. And him just not believing and saying, well, all our friends who had kids at that time, or all our friends, they're okay
Mhm.
now. Like, why aren't you okay? Because she was suffering from the same
Mhm.
thing. And it's multifaceted. There's so many drivers. Dietary drivers, sleep is a driver. There's all kinds of reasons that this pain can be worse. But that just brings up, I think, an important point, because women can sometimes not, they don't have to get into the medical system before they already start to feel trauma. It's the support system
Mhm.
that they may or may not have. So I don't know if you've can speak to that, or have heard stories about that, but I just wanted to share that, because it's kind of an a big, profound deal. It's why I always ask my patients, like, do you feel safe? Do you have a good support system as you come
Mhm.
in? Or do you have the time to be able to, if they have kids, or maybe they just have a really stressful job, to get away, to get into a
Mhm.
safe spot and pull out all this, all your toys. I call them toys. Pull out all your pelvic floor toys to be able to do this.
Mhm.
So, what is your experience with that? Because it is an undertaking to get better. Even if you have surgery, some don't have surgery. It's a commitment.
Yeah. I mean, I think that again, there's a problem with our culture here too. I guess not a problem exactly, but women are expected to be givers their entire life. It starts from how we're socialized, and we're taught to give everything. And when you have a partner, sometimes there is penetrative sex involved in like giving, and sometimes you really want to be involved in that, and that's exactly what you want, but there is sort of a feeling of you want to give that to your partner too. And when
Mm-hmm.
you can't do that, whether they are the most supportive person in the world, you start to feel like I'm not I'm not giving what I need to give. And uh, we shouldn't have to feel that way.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's something that there's a lot of unlearning that has to be done, and I think that you can have the most supportive partner in the world, but the culture around us and our socialization makes it feel hard to um, to take the time to make us feel better too. Because in order to go through physical therapy or talk to people about this, or even just tell your partner, I'm really hurting and it's really making me sad that I can't enjoy this in the way that I want to. Um, it
Yeah, that's
feels like
huge.
we're taking, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we're taught
Yeah.
to not do that.
Right. And there's a
So
massive
yeah.
amount of guilt that can come along with that. I call it, packing your guilt bags. Like, and when you started to describe that situation, I was like, oh, I can feel the guilt bag getting packed right now, like the guilt and the
Yeah.
shame of all that getting stuffed into one, suitcase. And we haul it around everywhere, to the grocery store, to work,
Hmm.
to sleep, at night,
Yeah.
and into our conversations. And it's not so easy just to shed it, because we're culturally, socially conditioned to be the nurturer and the caregiver. Plus,
Yes.
you want to do that,
Yeah.
you want to give pleasure and not just accept, that pleasure back. So that is it's just something to validate. We can't immediately fix it, but it's something to say that, hey, we understand that's happening, and you're experiencing that, and you're not alone with
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. I remember a lot of times like in college, you'd hear people talk about all these amazing things they were doing in their sex lives, and people talk about it, and it's a hard experience when you're not having those types of things either. Like you said, culturally, we don't, this
Hmm.
isn't a topic we talk about. So, I would have friends that have no idea what vaginismus is, and they're just talking about it. And at that time, I didn't feel comfortable saying, hey, well, I have this thing and I can't do that. And you find that you're like, well, I feel like I'm not connecting with other people. I feel like I'm not
Hmm.
connecting with my partner, or I'm just lying to myself, or as Nancy said, I'm gaslighting myself.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it can be a really isolating experience. And I'm really glad I have very, very supportive parents, who, like you'll see in the film, they are very, very supportive and kind of flip the page on that kind of narrative too, of the parents being scared of vaginas and instead being very, almost too supportive. Um, so like I said, I'm very lucky I had them for the process of surgery and pelvic floor. But I do remember bringing my toys to study abroad, and I remember it was just really challenging to find time. Like we were in such small spaces, and there was like 8 people in
Yeah.
the house, and like finding like time to be like, okay, I'm gonna go off for 30 minutes. No
Yeah.
one, no one come in my room. I know we don't have locks, but
Yep.
I would really appreciate if I'm taking an important phone call.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think I want to pull one thing out that both of you had mentioned, because your support network is everything. And, people don't always have that support network. It's a really important,
Hmm.
basis for feeling connected and having a sense of belonging and groundedness in the world. And another point to pull out of that is, if everyone's seen the little triangle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And on that base
Hmm.
level is sex. That's in there. And yet
Hmm.
for women, it's been ignored, from a research
Hmm.
perspective, from even, not that we're looking for big pharma, but even big pharma, and all the pharmacological intervention and stuff, it's all focused on male pleasure. But it, it,
Hmm.
it almost becomes another guilt and shame point. Like, oh, why would I ever ask about, my pleasure
Yeah.
being met, because
yeah,
everything is so focused on, well, let's just say, not that.
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
and then that is a basic, part of that triangle of our hierarchy of needs. And historically, it's been a shunned, taboo conversation, that you would have been looked at like, how could you possibly, um, you know, focus on that as a need, um,
Hmm.
almost to the point of, you're just here for, giving birth. Other than that, we don't have much use for you. When
Yeah.
you see how women have been treated historically. But I think that's just one other point that I wanted to make about that, because
Yeah.
it's a conversation that you need to have. Like, pleasure is part of that. Don't feel guilty about that.
Yes.
Don't feel
yeah,
shame because of that. Certainly, males are not feeling ashamed of having that conversation, because they have plenty of drugs and surgery surrounding it, but we just don't. And it's
Mhm.
it's time for a change. It's time for another paradigm shift.
Agreed. And it's so hard to feel pleasure when you're scared that you're going to be hurt. You're scared that you're going to feel pain. It's so hard to feel pleasure when you're scared of pain. And I think that I hope that we can help some people find that. I'm like, I hope our film helps more women have orgasms, but like
Yes.
I do. Like, I
Yes.
that would be great.
Yes, there's so many endocrine, biochemical, magic elixir that comes from that. We could get all nerdy and talk about the research all day long, but the bottom line
Yeah.
is women deserve to have orgasms too.
Yes. I think also realizing like PIV sex isn't like everything too.
Mm-hmm.
I think, obviously the sex education is little to none for most people
Yes.
here.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you feel so shamed about it, like, and all you know is that, PIV, that's it. That's all I know about. And yeah, it wasn't until later, way later in life that I learned even about other stuff you could be doing. And
Yeah, I think that's a
that's
really,
crazy.
really important point to make. It's, from a scientific perspective, I'm very careful to, when I'm documenting, to document, because people just assume sex. Oh, it's penetrative. No. No, it isn't, and so I come up from kind of the nerdy perspective. I don't want to assume that that's what someone means by sex, and to make sure that when I'm documenting, are they meeting their goals? Are they getting to back to where they want to be? That distinction has to be made, because that's not necessary for someone to have, to get the pleasure that they want. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, because that would have been sad to miss that point. That's an important point. Yeah. So I feel like at this point, we've kind of danced around so many important topics that kind of hit on this one question that I have. And this is such an easy question, but I think we all need to hear the answer to it. And repetition is where we learn. So I feel like again and again, people need to hear, the point of the film is to increase awareness, is to increase women having orgasms, is to increase awareness of these issues, and get people to towards the practitioners they need to seek out in pelvic health, which is also pelvic occupational therapy, and there's pelvic physical therapy. So there's multiple, and then there's sexual health counselors, and there's multiple people that are part of this team to resolve these issues and get people towards living their full quality of life. But the question is this: what would be the easiest change that you would like to see, like in the ideal world? What would be the ideal change that you would like to see to improve this situation? And the situation is where women aren't getting access to the care they need for whether it's vulvodynia, vaginismus, vestibulitis, whatever that is. What would you like to see change that would improve everyone's experience moving forward?
I would like women to feel empowered to talk about their sexuality and their body to their doctors, their partners, their friends, even. I think that we need to remove the shame. That is what my goal would be. I would love for this movie to peel away another layer of the shame that women feel.
I fully agree. I think, the way I can break my arm and tell everybody about it and go to a doctor and they're like, clearly it's a broken arm. I want that to be the experience that women have when they go in with any kind of these issues, whether it be vulvodynia, vaginismus. They could go talk to their friends, they could talk to their parents, they could go talk to a doctor about it, and again, remove that shame. And it's that simple.
Yeah, that what you guys both said together is such a mic drop. It's huge to just say that's it. That is it. We need to increase awareness of it. We need to talk about it as if, yep, I slammed my finger in my car door. Wow, that really hurt. It might be something along the lines of, well, I'm having this pain and it feels like I slammed my labia in the car door, or whatever that is.
Yes.
For it to be just that casual and that easy to say it.
Mhm.
And I think, from my perspective, I am a boy mom of 3, and I have 2 in high school and 1 in middle school. And we were talking a little bit about anatomy, and it was reproductive anatomy, but it was in relationship to the dog. And so I'll tell this short little story, and then I'll get to my answer for this little question. We have a chocolate Labrador. That's what we did have, but we have a black Labrador now. She's a rescue. Her name's Scout Finch, and
Cute.
so sweet. We rescued her. She was wandering around Charleston at about half her body weight with a bunch of disease processes going on. But she has been, like most homeless dogs that are found and sheltered, she's been fixed. So I was telling James about that, and I was like, well, have you learned about any of this anatomy in school? And I was already talking about our anatomy, right? I had moved on to human anatomy. He's like,
Mhm.
we've not learned anything about dogs yet, but I'm sure we will start talking about it this year. And I was like, well, he's not quite ready for the talk yet. So that was a cute moment where it kind of indicated to me, because as a pelvic PT, I'm always looking for a reason, like, oh, is it time to have a talk yet, or should we weave some anatomy into this? It is no big deal. Let's talk about it. Let's lay it out. So that was a moment for me as a mom. But I think that speaks to what my answer is that what I wish that we could, if I could snap my fingers and change, is that people would graduate from high school, that the kids would graduate from high school, and they would understand and have a basic working knowledge of how their body works.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Please. That sounds
Yeah,
great.
can we get that right now,
Yes.
actually?
Yeah.
Are we offering courses?
Yeah. And there's so many people that could do that. That would be really good at doing that in schools,
Mhm.
because kids graduate and they don't even know, like, how to prevent type 2 diabetes, much less sexual dysfunction, right?
Mhm.
Much less how things work, or if it's not working. Female athletes, like, if I was reading news statistics the other day, nearly half of female athletes leak,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
think it's okay. Is anybody talking about this?
Mhm.
For CrossFitters and cross country runners and that kind of thing. So I feel like there's a crisis where we know less and less about our bodies instead of more. And
Mhm.
I wish that could change.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. So some rapid fire questions to shore up. What book are you reading right now?
Ooh, I'm reading Nancy Drew because I like to just turn my brain off and have a good
Nice.
time when I'm done with things. So I've been reading some Nancy Drew, which has been very fun. It is just delightful.
I grew up reading that. I need to drag that back out again. Of course, now I'll
It's
just pull it up
fun.
on my Kindle, Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah.
that. Nancy's reading
I
Nancy.
Nancy, Nancy. I just finished with my book club, Wifey by Judy Blume,
Oh,
which
nice.
was very interesting. Very like opposite what we're talking about. But I guess that's what was interesting about reading it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. All right. Let's see. What's your favorite thing to do that is a fail safe chill pill? Like when you've got what is it?
Ooh.
God.
Say it, Bonnie. What is it?
I am a huge nerd when it comes to like Survivor. I've tried out like
Mhm.
3 times, and I love the show so much. I've watched every season
Incredible.
since 2000. And like if I need like a chill, like very chill pill, and like light a candle, weighted blanket, clean sheets, and we're gonna rewatch one of my favorite seasons of Survivor just straight through. No commercials.
I love it.
Amazing.
I love it.
Um, I make a casserole because I'm from the
From the
Midwest.
South. Oh, you're
So
from the Midwest. Yeah.
the
Okay.
Midwest. So
Well, we do the same thing
anything.
in the South.
Oh, good. Perfect. Then we'll be good at parties. In a crisis, you make a casserole. And it
Oh
feels like
my,
my everything is fine then.
I'm feeling that already. Yeah, I'm totally feeling that. All right, one more. I'm loving these answers. This might be a little bit harder because you guys have such eclectic interests. But what's a favorite thing to do when you're not fighting for the cause?
Ooh, I really love roller skating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really fun.
I am so not good at that.
You don't have to be. You just, hold on to the wall and enjoy.
I cannot put one foot over the other. It just all goes downhill really quickly. When you go into the curve, and I'm sure you look really cool going into the curve. I'm that
Oh,
awkward
thank you.
person. Yeah.
Um,
Bonnie, what
I would
about
say
you?
I would say if I'm not working, I'm usually traveling. I love
Yeah.
exploring new places. That's my favorite thing to ever do, no matter if
What's
it's like 2 hours away or a different country.
Yeah. What's the last cool place you visited?
So I actually this past weekend was in Mount Rainier National Park in Washington,
Oh,
and I hiked around
wow.
there for a few days. And then before that, I was in South Africa and did a safari and went shark cage diving, and it
Oh,
was
wow.
amazing.
Wow, you did that. Yeah, when I was in South Africa, that was on the list
Casual.
of options, and I was like, who would do that? Now I know.
Bonnie would do
Bonnie would
that.
do
I would
that.
do that. Yeah. I was like, I'm just not going to tell anyone until after I do it.
Yeah, we would worry. Yeah, we would worry about you. So I'm glad you're out on the other side. And did you see any sharks?
We did. We had one brush up and hit the cage, which was really, really cool. I know. I know. Just
Wild.
like, no. I know. Yeah, like I said, I'm either laying down watching Survivor or trying to find something cool and thrilling to do.
Yeah, doing something where you might not survive. Yeah.
Bonnie
I love
Now
it.
I'm like, huh,
I love
is
it.
I
the survivor.
am the Survivor.
Well, I'm inspired. I'm inspired on all cases here. Bonnie and Nancy, I want to thank you for spending this time with me today, for talking with me, for being a profound inspiration. Um, you guys don't know it yet, but you're about to be inspired by this film, and I cannot wait to see it. And what I know about it already, I know it's going to be incredible. So I want to thank you for all your hard work and your dedication for doing it. And yeah, and for taking the time to talk to me. Thank you.
Of course, thank you so much. This has been great. I'm also glad that we all wore pink today. We really
Yes, we
got the
did.
memo.
Yes, you have got the shades. I was pulling the Barbie pink out,
I love it.
which
I
was
love it.
never a part of my wardrobe until this summer. Before the movie
Mm,
came out, I had no idea it was even coming out. And I thought, why am I averse to pink? Probably because of all this cultural conditioning,
mhm.
where you're already not taken seriously. So if you wear pink, you're just asking for it then.
Yep,
But
yep.
here we are.
Yep.
Here we are. We're sporting pink and being taken seriously. So
Exactly.
thank you guys again. And I can't wait to see it. I know we could just keep talking about it, but can't wait to see it. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.